You know that feeling when you're so close to a lifelong dream you can almost taste it? For me, it was the sweet taste of being debt-free. But my family decided to serve me a 5-course meal of betrayal instead. The day I got the promotion, I sat in my car in the parking lot, just staring at the email. Senior Marketing Manager. The words glowed on the screen like some golden ticket. Years of long nights, caffeine, and fake smiles had finally paid off. My salary jumped by 30%, my bonus was huge, and for the first time, I could see the end of that mortgage. My condo, my tiny plant-filled sanctuary, was about to be mine. No bank, no looming debt, just me. I couldn't wait to tell my family. We'd always celebrated good news at my parents' house, around Mom's heavy oak dining table that had seen every birthday, every argument, every Thanksgiving disaster. I showed up with a bottle of champagne, thinking they'd be thrilled. They weren't. Mom's first words weren't congratulations. They were, well, maybe now you can help your sister a little more. Harper, sitting there with her perfect nails and zero sense of shame, smirked like she'd been waiting for that cue. Yeah, she said. Jackson's hours got cut again. We're struggling with rent. Dad cleared his throat. And you know, your mom's car's been acting up. Maybe it's time we replaced it. You could help us out a bit, right? The champagne cork popped mid-sentence, a hollow sound in the silence that followed. I poured the glasses anyway, my hands stiff. I just told you I got promoted, I said, forcing a laugh. Can't we celebrate that first? But their faces stayed blank, expectant. It was as if they hadn't even heard me. Mom gave a soft sigh. Sweetheart, we are proud of you. But you've always been the responsible one. You've got your life together. It's natural you'd want to take care of family. There it was. The subtle rebranding of generosity into obligation. I looked around the table. The same table where I'd once done homework while Mom cooked, where Dad used to tell stories about his youth, where Harper used to steal fries off my plate. But now every memory seemed to warp under the weight of what they wanted from me. I smiled tightly. I'll think about it. They took that as a yes, of course. The conversation quickly shifted to which car my parents were considering and how much Harper's rent was. I nodded, numbly eating the roast chicken that suddenly tasted like ash. On the drive home, I rolled down the window and let the cold Seattle air slap my face awake. My promotion wasn't a victory anymore. It was a transaction waiting to happen. I'd thought success would make me free. Instead, it made me a target. And that was the night I first realized. In my family, love always came with a price tag. At first, it was just a small transfer. Harper texted late one Friday. Something about the power company threatening disconnection. A temporary setback, nothing major. Sienna sighed, opened her banking app, and sent the money before thinking twice. It wasn't much, just a few hundred. A sisterly favor, she told herself. Everyone hits rough patches. Then it happened again. A week later, Harper needed grocery money. The next month, it was car repairs. There was always an explanation, always urgency, always that same pleading tone wrapped in guilt. You know we wouldn't ask if it wasn't serious, Harper would say. But the tone carried a silent accusation, that if Sienna refused, she'd be heartless. Her parents weren't much different. Every first Sunday of the month, like clockwork, Mom would text. Can you send the usual? No please, no thank you. Just a quiet expectation, as if the money were part of the household's natural rhythm. When Sienna once delayed the transfer by a few days, her father called to check in, his voice casual but edged. Your mother was worried something happened to you. The payment didn't come through. Payment. The word clung to her thoughts longer than she wanted. The months blurred into a pattern. Promotion bonus dwindling faster than she'd planned. Savings account looking slimmer than her budget spreadsheet predicted. Each transaction came with a familiar ache in her chest. She'd start the day determined to say no, to draw a line. But by evening, guilt had twisted her resolve into another reluctant, sure, I'll help. What bothered her most wasn't the money. It was the silence that followed. The gratitude dried up like a seasonal creek. No calls unless they wanted something. No texts asking about her day, her job, her life. Conversations had become negotiations cloaked in small talk. One night, she scrolled through her messages and realized something painful. The last genuine thank you she'd received from any of them was months ago. Every chat now was a request disguised as conversation. Hey, you free this weekend? Always led to, by the way, could you spot us for? The erosion was slow, almost invisible at first. But it showed up in little things, how she hesitated before answering their calls, how her stomach tightened at every new message from Harper, how her evenings grew quieter because she avoided picking up the phone. Her generosity, once a source of pride, began to feel like a wound she kept reopening. Each transfer chipped away at her spirit, at the belief that family love was unconditional. She told herself she was helping, keeping the peace. But deep down, she knew she was buying temporary relief from guilt, and the price was getting higher each time. One night, staring at her dwindling savings balance, she whispered into the stillness of her condo, "How did I let this happen?" The reflection in the dark window offered no answer. Just her own tired eyes staring back, haunted by the quiet realization that the more she gave, the less they saw her as a person. Sienna stood outside the sprawling brick house clutching a neatly wrapped box, an imported fragrance Harper had once admired but never bought for herself. The evening air was sharp, scented faintly with grilled food and expensive perfume. Laughter spilled from the backyard. For a moment, she considered leaving. But she told herself this was a chance to smooth things over, to remind them all that she still cared, despite everything. Barbara's house gleamed with the kind of polished perfection that screamed money and control. White hydrangeas lined the walkway. A matching set of luxury cars sparkled in the driveway. Inside, the air buzzed with chatter, the sound of ice clinking in glasses and Barbara's shrill laugh floating above it all. "Look who finally decided to show up," Barbara announced as Sienna stepped in, her tone a mix of amusement and judgment. Heads turned. Harper appeared from the kitchen, beaming with that overly bright smile that always came before trouble. "You made it. Everyone, this is my sister, Sienna," she said, as if introducing a stranger. Sienna forced a polite smile, handed Harper the gift, and joined the circle forming near the patio. Barbara wasted no time. "So, you're the big shot marketer," she said loudly, swirling her wine. "Harper tells me you're doing very well these days. Must be nice, huh?" Sienna's cheeks warmed. "I'm doing fine. Just working hard, like everyone." Barbara smirked. "Oh, come on. Don't be modest. Harper mentioned you just got a raise, and yet she tells me you're, how did she put it? Careful with money. Isn't that odd? Family struggling, and you're careful." The laughter that followed was soft but sharp enough to cut. Sienna's stomach tightened. "That's not really true," she said, her voice calm but firm. "I've been helping whenever I can." Barbara tilted her head. "Helping? Interesting choice of word. I'd call it holding back. When family's in need, dear, you don't ration kindness like coupons." A ripple of awkward chuckles spread around the patio. Sienna's gaze darted toward Harper. Her sister stood there, silent, eyes downcast but mouth twitching with something dangerously close to satisfaction. Her parents sat at the far end of the table, watching, neither moving nor speaking. Sienna waited for someone to intervene. A defense. A single word in her favor. Nothing came. Only the soft clink of glasses, the music swelling to fill the gap where loyalty should have been. Barbara's voice cut through again, syrupy sweet. "It's just sad, isn't it? Some people forget where they come from once they start climbing. But don't worry, darling. Life has a way of humbling us." The group laughed, nervous, complicit, cruel. Sienna swallowed hard, forcing herself not to react. The gift she'd brought now felt like a bribe, her presence a mistake. She excused herself quietly, stepping through the patio doors into the night. Under the porch light, her hands trembled. The laughter echoed faintly behind her, a chorus of betrayal she would never forget. In that moment, something inside her cracked, not loudly but irrevocably. She finally understood. Their silence wasn't ignorance. It was consent. The invitation came in the family group chat, cheerful emojis softening the message. "Dinner at our place this Sunday, just family." Sienna hesitated before replying. After what happened at Barbara's party, she'd expected tension, maybe avoidance. Instead, the sudden enthusiasm felt rehearsed. Still, curiosity and a thin thread of duty pulled her in. The house looked the same as always, the faint smell of lavender polish, the steady hum of her father's old record player, but the air felt heavier. Her mother greeted her with a quick hug, tight but hollow. Harper was already there, scrolling through her phone, pretending not to notice when Sienna entered. Dinner started with brittle small talk about work, traffic, the weather. It was almost normal, until Harper's husband mentioned Barbara. "She told us you left early," he said casually, not looking up from his plate. "Said you didn't take a joke well." Sienna's fork paused midair. Her mother sighed. "Honey, Barbara didn't mean to upset you. You know how outspoken she can be." "She humiliated me," Sienna said quietly. Her father leaned back in his chair. "Barbara's old-fashioned. She believes in family supporting each other. Maybe she just struck a nerve because deep down, she's right. The words landed like a slap. Right? About what? That you've forgotten your roots, Harper cut in, tone sharp under its sweetness. You act like helping family is some burden. You have no idea what real struggle looks like. Sienna blinked, stunned by the casual cruelty. I've been helping. Constantly. Her mother's voice softened in that practiced way that always made Sienna feel like the villain. Sweetheart, no one's saying you don't help. It's just the way you talk about money sometimes. It's like you're keeping score. Maybe because you are keeping score, Harper added, smirking. The conversation twisted into something claustrophobic. Every word she offered as explanation was dismissed, flipped, minimized. Barbara was suddenly the victim. Sienna somehow the instigator. The narrative had already been decided before she'd even sat down. Her father poured himself another glass of wine. You've changed, Sienna. Ever since that promotion. You talk about saving, about paying off your place early, as if we're all failures for not doing the same. That did it. The numbness in her chest hardened into something cold, precise. So, the problem isn't Barbara. It's me. Because I'm not giving enough. Because I won't let you dictate what I earn. Her mother's eyes filled with tears, rehearsed and familiar. We just miss the old you. Sienna pushed her chair back, the legs scraping the tile. The old me didn't know better. Her voice was calm now, steady. I think I need a break from all of this. The silence that followed wasn't surprise, it was insult. Harper's jaw tightened. Her father muttered something about ungrateful children. Her mother reached for her hand, but Sienna stepped back. That night, driving home, the city lights blurred through her windshield. She didn't cry. She didn't rage. She just knew. From that moment on, her money, her peace, her future, none of it would ever belong to them again. When the email arrived, it didn't look like much, just a bland subject line from her bank. But the first sentence made her breath catch. Your loan balance is now 0. For a moment, she just stared at the screen, rereading the words until they began to feel unreal. Then she laughed, quietly at first, then louder, fuller, like the sound had been trapped inside her for years. The condo felt different that day. The walls, the floors, even the hum of the refrigerator seemed to breathe with her. It was all hers now. No signatures, no payments waiting at the end of the month, no one with a claim on her effort. Every late night at the office, every careful choice, every restraint had led to this exact moment. She walked barefoot from room to room, running her hand along the smooth surfaces as though touching a new version of her own life. That evening, she opened a bottle of wine she'd been saving since the day she bought the place. It wasn't celebration in the traditional sense. No crowd, no cheers, no music. Just quiet satisfaction. She thought of all the nights she'd sat at her kitchen table doing math on napkins, trying to stretch her paychecks, promising herself it would all be worth it. And now it was. But satisfaction has a way of making people sentimental. As the night wore on, the silence around her began to feel heavier. She thought about the empty space where family should have been, about her mother's laugh, her father's old jokes, even Harper's sarcastic grin. A small voice whispered that maybe, just maybe, this achievement could be a bridge back to something better. By the next morning, that idea had grown roots. She drafted a short message. Dinner's on me. Let's celebrate something special. She kept it simple, careful not to sound eager. Within minutes, her mother responded with a heart emoji and we'd love to. Harper's reply came later. Sure. Jackson and I are free. No warmth, but no refusal either. She booked a reservation at a restaurant she'd only ever walked past, a sleek, glass-fronted place downtown known for its handcrafted cocktails and flawless service. It was a small indulgence, a statement that she was finally in control of her life. That week, she worked with a sense of lightness she hadn't felt in years. Every email, every meeting, every small annoyance rolled off her like rain on glass. She even found herself smiling at strangers on the street. Freedom, she realized, didn't just mean owning something. It meant not being owned by anyone or anything. The day of the dinner, she took her time getting ready. She chose a simple black dress, elegant but not flashy, and a pair of gold earrings she'd bought years ago but never had the confidence to wear. As she fastened them, she looked in the mirror and saw not the tired woman who once begged for approval, but someone entirely new. She grabbed her coat, glanced once more at her living room. The plants thriving by the window, the framed photo of her younger self holding the condo keys, and smiled. The world outside waited, glittering with possibility. Tonight, she would celebrate not just what she'd earned, but who she'd become. And for the first time in a long while, she felt brave enough to hope that her family might finally see her the way she saw herself. The restaurant's warm glow spilled onto the sidewalk as Sienna approached, her heels clicking softly against the pavement. Through the glass, she could see tables glimmering under low light, servers weaving between guests carrying plates that looked like art. She paused at the entrance to take a breath. Tonight was supposed to mark a turning point, something peaceful, maybe even forgiving. Her parents were already seated when she arrived, waving her over with exaggerated enthusiasm. Her mother clasped her hands across the table, smiling too wide. "You look wonderful, sweetheart," she said. Her father nodded in agreement, unusually upbeat. The mood was oddly buoyant, rehearsed almost, but Sienna told herself not to overthink it. Menus lay open before them, the air carrying faint notes of citrus and grilled seafood. "I'm really glad you came," Sienna said softly. "It means a lot." Her mother squeezed her hand. "Of course, dear. We wouldn't miss it for the world." Before Sienna could say more, a flurry of movement by the door caught her eye. Harper entered, laughter leading her like a soundtrack. But she wasn't alone. Behind her streamed a parade of people, faces Sienna barely recognized until her stomach twisted. Barbara, her husband, their grown daughter and son-in-law, and 3 children, already darting between tables in noisy excitement. Sienna blinked, certain there'd been some mistake. The group approached in a wave of perfume, chatter, and oblivious cheer. Harper, grinning, called out before reaching the table. "Hope you don't mind the extras." The words landed like a spark in a room full of gas. Barbara leaned in to air-kiss Sienna's cheek, as though they were old friends. "So lovely of you to invite us, dear. Harper told us you wanted to celebrate your big achievement properly." Her tone was syrupy, her eyes glinting with smug amusement. Sienna looked at Harper, waiting for some kind of correction, a joke, something. Harper just shrugged, sliding into the seat beside her husband. "Since you're debt-free now, we figured you wouldn't mind sharing the joy a little. Everyone, order whatever you want." The kids hooped. Barbara's husband called for menus. The daughter signaled a waiter, already discussing cocktails. Within seconds, chaos had settled comfortably at the table, as if this intrusion were perfectly natural. Sienna sat frozen, fingers pressed against the edge of her napkin. Her parents didn't look surprised. Her mother was busy complimenting Barbara's earrings. Her father laughed at some comment about wine pairings. The realization sank in like ice, they'd known. The waiter appeared, pen poised. Orders began flying: steak, lobster, truffle pasta, desserts for the kids. No one paused to ask what Sienna thought. She barely heard her name when Harper added, "Oh, and we'll put it all together on one bill, right, sis? Easier that way." Her mouth went dry. Around her, laughter bubbled, glasses clinked, plates clattered. The table had transformed into a scene of indulgence, her supposed celebration twisted into spectacle. She tried to steady her breathing, her pulse loud in her ears. This was supposed to be about family healing, not spectacle. But sitting there, surrounded by the people who'd once called her selfish, she understood the truth. Tonight wasn't about her at all. It was about what they could take. And they hadn't even bothered to hide it. Sienna kept her smile fixed as the orders multiplied around her like a spreading fire. The waiter scribbled frantically, nodding as Barbara's husband asked for the most expensive bottle of wine on the list. The sound of cutlery and chatter filled the air, a polished hum of entitlement. She heard words like wagyu, lobster tail, truffle pasta, each request heavier than the last. The children squealed, waving their menus like flags. "Can we get the sparkly drinks again?" one of them asked, and before Sienna could speak, Harper chimed in. "Of course, sweetheart. Aunt Sienna's treating." The sentence echoed in her head. Aunt Sienna's treating. Not a question, an assumption wrapped in a smile. Her parents said nothing. Her father nodded along with Barbara's husband as if discussing stock prices, and her mother kept adjusting her napkin, pretending not to notice Sienna's tightening jaw. Harper sipped her cocktail with lazy satisfaction, her eyes flicking toward her sister every so often, gauging the reaction she'd provoked. Sienna tried to taste her water, but it felt like swallowing glass. The scene unfolded in slow motion. The glittering plates, the laughter, Barbara's smug glances. It was a performance, and everyone knew their part except her. Each passing minute chipped away at the fragile hope that had brought her here. When the first bottle of wine arrived, Barbara raised her glass. "To family," she declared, "and to Sienna for proving that success means sharing it." The table erupted in laughter, a practiced chorus of false cheer. Sienna clinked her glass against Harper's, barely touching, her stomach turning. Something inside her shifted then, not loudly, not explosively, but with a cold precision that startled even her. The noise around her blurred into a dull hum as clarity took its place. This wasn't about food or celebration. It was about control, about reminding her that no matter how far she'd come, they still saw her as the one to foot the bill. She placed her glass down gently, folded her napkin, and murmured, "Excuse me." No one looked up as she stood. They were too busy laughing at something Barbara's husband said. Sienna walked toward the restroom, her pace calm, deliberate. But when she reached the corner that led to the hallway, she stopped, not to breathe, but to think. The plan formed in seconds, clean and sharp. She found a server polishing glasses near the bar and caught her attention. "Hi," she said, voice steady. "I need to make a quick adjustment to the table's billing arrangements." The woman nodded politely. "Of course. What would you like me to do?" Sienna leaned in slightly. "Separate checks for each group, please. I'll cover my meal and the reservation deposit only. The rest they'll handle themselves." The server blinked, then nodded slowly. "Understood, ma'am." "Good," Sienna said, her tone even, almost serene. "And please don't mention it until the end." As she walked back to the table, her pulse steadied. The laughter grew louder, oblivious. She sat down, rejoining the noise, her expression composed. Inside, though, the decision had already been made. Whatever came next, she would not be the one paying for their appetite, or their arrogance, ever again. By the time the plates were cleared, the table looked like a battlefield. Wine stains, half-eaten desserts, discarded napkins, and the dull glint of silverware under low lighting. The laughter had grown sloppier, the voices louder. Barbara was in full performance mode, leaning back in her chair as she raised her glass. "To our lovely hostess," she declared, her tone dripping with irony. "What a wonderful evening. It's so rare to see such generosity these days." Harper followed with a smirk. "Yeah, Sienna, you've really come a long way. Maybe Barbara's right. You just needed the right push to loosen up." The table erupted in forced cheer. Even the children clapped, confused but eager to join the noise. Sienna's parents smiled awkwardly, pretending not to notice the tension that sat between every word. Sienna said nothing. She let the noise wash over her, expression calm, eyes unreadable. Every cruel joke, every smug comment, every casual assumption, it all slid past her now. The decision she'd made earlier held steady in her mind like a blade's edge. When the waiter appeared with a polite smile, balancing a stack of folders, the table quieted. "Here we are," he said. "Checks for each group." For a moment, silence stretched. Then Barbara laughed. "Oh, that's cute," she said, waving dismissively. "Just bring us one bill." "She's covering it." The waiter blinked. "I'm sorry, ma'am. That's not what was arranged." He began setting the bills down one by one, Barbara and her husband, the daughter's family, Harper and Jackson, Sienna's parents, and finally Sienna herself. Confusion rippled through the group, then outrage. "There's been a mistake," her father barked, slamming his hand against the table. "My daughter's hosting. Fix this immediately." The waiter looked at Sienna, uncertain. She met his gaze and gave a small, measured nod. "No mistake," she said, her voice steady. "I invited 4 people, my parents, my sister, and her husband. 11 arrived. You all ordered as if this were your event, not mine." Barbara's smile faltered. "Oh, come now. Don't make a scene. We're family." Sienna turned toward her, eyes calm but cold. "Exactly. And that's why this ends here. You came uninvited, spent freely, and mocked me for not doing enough. Tonight, you'll take responsibility for what you chose." Her father's face reddened. "You're embarrassing us." "No," she said quietly. "I'm just finished being embarrassed by you." A sharp stillness fell over the table. No one spoke. Only the faint clatter of dishes from the kitchen broke the silence. Sienna reached into her purse, pulled out a few bills, and placed them neatly beside her plate. "That covers my meal and the reservation fee," she said. "Enjoy the rest of your evening." She pushed her chair back with slow grace, stood, and smoothed her dress. Around her, the protests began, a mix of shock, anger, and disbelief, but she didn't look back. As she walked toward the exit, the restaurant's soft music drowned out their voices. She felt the chill of the night air before the door. Morning light seeped through the blinds, the laughter, thin the manipulation, across the floor, the weight of obligation. Sienna's phone vibrated nonstop at that nightstand, where they belonged, a restless insect of noise. She ignored it for as long as she could, hoping it would die down, but it didn't. Eventually, she reached for it, half expecting another work notification. Instead, the screen was filled with messages, angry blocks of text, missed calls, voice notes. All from them. Her mother's messages came first, paragraphs alternating between outrage and guilt. How could you humiliate us like that? Followed by, you need to fix this before it gets worse. Her father's voicemail was louder, clipped with fury. You left your family to deal with your mess. Over $3,000. You think that's funny? You've lost your mind. Harper's text arrived last. You're unbelievable. Everyone saw the kind of person you really are. Sienna scrolled through the chaos, her pulse steady, her mind surprisingly quiet. The anger didn't pierce anymore. It felt distant, like static from a radio in another room. She set the phone face down on the table and made herself coffee, savoring the bitter calm of it. By noon, the pounding started. 3 sharp knocks, a pause, then another round. She already knew who it was. Through the peephole, she saw them. Her parents in front, Harper just behind, arms crossed, eyes burning. She hesitated, then opened the door halfway. Her mother began before Sienna could speak. We just came from the restaurant. They refused to cancel the charges. Do you have any idea what you've done? I paid for what I owed, Sienna said simply. Her father stepped forward, his voice rising. You made fools of us. You embarrassed your own blood in public. We had to cover that ridiculous bill because of you. Sienna met his glare evenly. Because of me? I didn't invite them. I didn't order for 11 people. Harper scoffed. You're unbelievable. Do you hear yourself? It was a celebration. You turned it into some kind of punishment. Her mother's tone softened, but the words stung all the same. Sweetheart, you could have handled this privately. We didn't raise you to be cruel. Sienna's jaw tightened. You didn't raise me to be respected either. The silence that followed was sharp, heavy. Her father's face hardened again. We're not leaving until you make this right. Sienna stepped back, her expression calm but unyielding. You won't get another cent from me. Not now, not ever. The $600 a month stops today. No more transfers, no more favors, no more pretending I'm your safety net. Harper's voice cracked. You can't just cut us off. I already did. Her mother's eyes widened, disbelief overtaking anger. You don't mean that. I do. Her father started forward, but Sienna held up a hand. If you don't leave now, I'll call the police. The threat hung in the air like cold smoke. They saw it in her face. She wasn't bluffing. The defiance in her eyes left no room for argument. Slowly, her mother tugged at her husband's sleeve, urging him toward the door. Harper followed, muttering something under her breath. The door shut behind them with a quiet click. For a long time, Sienna just stood there, the silence almost deafening. Then she let out a slow breath and turned toward the window. Outside, the city moved on, indifferent and alive. For the first time in her adult life, so did she. Autumn came quietly, softening the edges of everything. For the first time in years, my life didn't feel heavy. I woke up without dread, went to bed without guilt, and filled my days with things that were purely mine. I traveled alone, no explanations, no apologies. I walked through cities where no one knew my name, ordered what I wanted, stayed where I pleased. There was something intoxicating about spending money only on myself, about choosing without permission. My condo felt different too. I'd stripped away everything that reminded me of obligation. The furniture my parents had helped me buy, the framed photos that once felt like anchors. I painted the walls warm cream, filled the corners with plants, light, and silence. It no longer felt like a cage lined with bills and expectations. It finally felt like home. Of course, the noise didn't stop entirely. Friends mentioned that my family had been talking, retelling the restaurant night with their usual flair for victimhood. I heard that I was cold, that I'd forgotten where I came from. Maybe that would have shattered me once. Now I just shrugged. They could tell whatever stories they wanted. I was no longer auditioning for their approval. The peace of not caring was worth more than any apology they'd never mean. One morning, a plain envelope appeared in my mailbox. The handwriting froze me, Harper's. I hesitated before opening it. Inside was a letter that started defensive but softened halfway through. She wrote about Kyle leaving her, about Barbara's meddling, about how quickly loyalty disappears when money runs out. And then there it was. I think I finally understand how you felt. I read it twice, maybe 3 times. The words didn't sting, they didn't soothe either. They just existed. I folded the letter carefully, slid it into a drawer, and let it stay there. I wasn't ready to answer, and maybe I never would be. That night, I sat on my balcony with a glass of wine, the city spread beneath me. The air was cool, carrying the faint hum of life moving forward. For once, I didn't feel responsible for anyone else's comfort. My life was mine now, every inch of it earned, paid for, and protected. The foundation beneath me wasn't built from family ties or guilt. It was built from everything I'd survived, and it was finally, unshakably mine. So, what would you have done if you were in my place? Would you have walked away for good, or tried one last time to fix things with a family that never saw your worth? I'm honestly curious. Tell me in the comments. And if you like true stories like mine, don't forget to subscribe for more.